to our latest edition of the In the Hot Seat, a panel discussion focused on how technology is solving today's problems. These panel discussions are part of ScanSource's Discover Opportunity initiative, and I'm pleased to be joined today with two of our industry experts who will help you, our partners, discover opportunities with your customers in the education space. So let's start by meeting our panelists. I'll start ladies first with Stacy. If you can give us a little introduction into you and your role.
Sure, thank you, Kyle. I appreciate the invitation to join the discussion today. My name is Stacy Marshall. I'm an education specialist with Mitel, and this has been my focus for about 16 months. However, I have been supporting customers with Mitel solutions for over 20 years.
Great. Thank you for joining us, Stacy. And James, I'll come to you for your introduction.
Hi, Kyle. Again, thanks for having us. My name is James Green. I am the Manager of Business Development for Public Sector with Jabra. My charter is the development of solutions within the public sector space from agencies, healthcare, and specifically education.
Yep, great. So like I said in the opener, I'm really excited to have you two here. I've had a lot of experience. My background at ScanSource from day one has been on the communication side, so I have a lot of familiarity with your brands and your companies. And we're really excited today to hear you guys give your opinions to our partners on how to find some opportunities in the education space. So this is one of a couple of panels we're doing as part of Discover Opportunity. A couple of panels we're doing in the education space. Today, we're going to try to create a theme around effective distance learning. And so I gave you guys the cue in the green room. I try to create continuity between the panels, gold stars, virtual gold stars to you guys. If you do that, that'll be awesome. But let's, James, we're going to start today. Just let's start to define what we're talking about around distance learning. Again, our goal here is to connect technology with what we're doing, but what do you see that the most effective elements of distance learning are, and where technology is playing into that?
That's a great question. I mean, I think we've seen with this school district or with this school year going back even to a year ago, with schools, it's the ability to be connective, to connect the teachers to the students, to connect the schools to their constituency. And I think added to that is when they are in these particular sessions, learning sessions, online sessions, what have you, it's the ability to communicate effectively. That ability for the teacher to be heard, that ability for that student to hear and be heard. And I think really finally what we're seeing when we're chatting with school districts, when we're chatting with higher education, it's allowing that educator to use the tools that are commonly used at their disposal, the ability to use their whiteboards, the ability to be able to use areas within their classroom where they normally conduct laboratory experiments or what have you. So that's what we're seeing. Again, use your tools and the ability to connect.
Yeah, the elements of a good collaborative session in the business world, which we've all been selling into for years and years and years, it's now being applied to education space, which is not necessarily new. We've had online education for a long time, especially in the continuing ed and adult education space. But now that we're pushing this all the way down into K through 12, quality audio, engagement of the student, all those things are super important. So again, very, very relevant to your two brands. Stacy, opportunity here to follow up on James's comments.
I agree with James. And I also would say that one of the biggest hurdles that we heard from several of the focus groups that we had in Q4 with various educators was really the continuity of being able to weave that thread through their back office application. So how do they exist in those environments that James candidly pointed out and still communicate with those administrators effectively when they're not in that virtual teaching environment? So I think continuity of a holistic solution makes a lot of sense.
Yep. So what are, Stacey, what are your thoughts on whether or not distance learning becomes a ongoing, dare I say, permanent part of a K through 12 education?
Right, that's a good question. And I do believe the answer is yes, but let me caveat that by first saying that many educators are expecting a decline in student retention this year for the lessons that were taught or being taught in virtual education today, which really gives us an opportunity, right? Many of us reached for consumer grade, potentially free services that weren't scalable. Now that we know better, we can do better. So I believe that distance learning is going to play a part. Now, what that looks like, whether it's a student in their room, or whether we can group together students in pods and maybe they can congregate in areas in which they're already, grouping together. And this might be activity centers, this might be worship locations, this might even be libraries. And then we might have the ability to better outfit those locations with the better bandwidth, maybe an environment that's more conducive to less distractions for students. So I think that's a real creative environment for us to take a hard look at how to solve, and maybe opens up the opportunity, not just within that educational business sector, in that educational campus environment, but the outlying supporting members of the community.
So James, your focus on your business focus on public sector, I'm sure you're running into these same conversations where you're having to discuss with your customers and end customers in that space about whether or not they continue this, or let's not call it a fad, because fads are social. This was an immediate need to deploy technology to solve a need, with distance learning. But what are your conversations leading towards? Or is this a permanent solution to education?
Kyle, great question. And what we're seeing it's going to be a multitude of things, right? So online learning will continue going forward. As an example, just last week, the New York Department of Education said no more snow days. Well, that's a great thing, right? So we are going to be able to keep our kids in school for longer times throughout the school year. What we're going to see going forward is we're going to see different types of learning. We're going to see the synchronous learning. We're going to see the ability to teach those that are in the classroom as well as those that are at home at the same time, the same lesson, to keep with that continuity, as close as we can to what historical teaching was. We're going to see pure online. We're chatting with a lot of school districts that some students had a lot of success over the past year to be teaching and learning from home. So we're going to see that online experience continue going forward. So you'll have school districts that offer a multitude of both. They'll offer in-person learning, they'll offer synchronous learning, and they'll offer pure online learning. And then really lastly, I think what we're chatting with school districts about is leveraging their talent. Some school districts may have a culinary class, and perhaps that teacher is very expert within that particular subject. Why limit it to just that school and just those students within that school and who sign up for those classes? Extend it to the remainder of the district, maybe even extend it outside their district's boundaries. So that's what we're seeing, and I think it's great. I mean, keeping the kids engaged, keeping them educated. What has come out of this has been positive.
2 gold stars so far, James. We just talked with Jason Jones from Microsoft in a previous panel, and he brought up no more snow days. That's a weird evolution of the K-12 education. I'm in the South. Stacy's in the South. We actually have snow days over here. I don't know if you get snow days in Phoenix, but no. It pushes into summer. It's very disruptive, et cetera, et cetera. Well, now you don't necessarily need to transport kids to the physical facility to receive an education. No more snow days going away. So I appreciate that comment for sure. We have also that one of our other panels is on higher education. And one of the questions we posed to that panel was, now that distance learning is available to students, can you expand the number of students that you can reach? And your comments about the culinary example speaks to that exactly, right? If you have a unique talent, why limit it to your geography? Expand your reach into students. So, love those comments, James. I'll stay with you here. So, I mean, we understand now distance learning is here. It's probably here to stay. It was quickly adopted, which is a little surprising, especially in the public sector. But how easy are the technology solutions to acquire for public schools, even private schools? How quickly can they get these things deployed to take advantage of the efficiencies you guys have just outlined of distance learning?
I think first and foremost is a lot of manufacturers, Jabra included, a lot of our solutions are based on plug and play capabilities. So I think when a district is looking at employing a solution, it's a solution that they can plug into their existing environment. Maybe there's a little bit of training involved, but for the most part, it's WYSIWYG, right? What you see is what you get in terms of the operation of the device. That device could be from an interactive board, a camera, a headset, whatever the case may be. So I think first and foremost, it's got to be ease of use, and the ability for that educator. The last year, educators became technology people as well, right? What's happening on the Zoom call? This froze, that froze, whatever the case may be. So, those things have vastly improved over this last year, where, again, that educator can go away from being a technical resource to being a teacher.
Yep. Yeah, that's perfect. Stacy, your Mitel is making a focused transition now into the cloud, which also helps with the not only acquisition but deployment of some of this technology. So I'd love to hear your comments too, and how you're seeing these types of organizations, specifically education organizations, acquiring and deploying this technology.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think the expertise should be left to the experts so that we don't expect for our teachers and students, for that matter, to become technologists. So moving into the cloud really does provide a more rapid deployment methodology. And it really just allows for us to deploy to the exceptions. And within education, most of the organization is very structured. There's teachers, there's administrators, there's executive leadership groups. And for the most part, their needs are very similar. What we strive to do is to try to identify what's unique about each of those, so that we can make sure that if we need to have physical connectivity on site, if we need to have surveys done on site, then we really have an exemplary business partner community who can work in tandem with Mitel to make sure that we can accommodate that. And I think that's the easiest, surefire, quickest way to spin up a site, specifically because it also has education value pricing, right? So that's applicable whether it's private school or it's public school.
Yeah, that's great. Now, and James, I'm going to tee this up as a follow-up question or a comment you made, but I'm going to do it as an all play. So, Stacy, James, either one or both of you, I'd love to hear your comments on this. But my whole career has been in services, so when I hear things like training needs, that sets off light bulbs for me. Like, that's a billable service, and someone within the channel should be providing that. And then James, you specifically mentioned that now we have education staff becoming IT staff because they're having to troubleshoot the experience that they're providing, and even the AV experience. Stacy, you mentioned it too. So how do you guys feel like our partners can be the most successful in addressing training needs of users? So all this new technology is being adopted, or it's at least being purchased, right? We recognize there's a difference between purchase and adoption. So technology is being purchased or acquired. Now we have to worry about adoption, and now we have a user group, which is not our traditional user group and our IT staff. So where are you seeing the success with partners addressing those needs, the training on technology needs?
Stacy, you want to take that first?
Sure. This is actually my background. I began over 20 years as a project manager and trainer. So I think it's a combination, right? We're going to notice that the most successful deployments not only have live instructional training using the applications and tools that the students and teachers will be using, but having those recordings available as a library to go back to. And one thing that we coined at Mitel that many of our business partners utilize is what we call open mic night. And we actually did this with an educational system in the Northeast in Q4. We put on 2 one-hour sessions for a week long. And this was after the deployment was completed, probably about 2 weeks, so that the students and teachers had a chance or an opportunity to actually use the interfaces. At that point, they come back with specific questions. They don't need to stay on for the entire hour, but they jump in, they ask their question, they get what they need to do their job, and they kind of move on. And then another subset really wants to learn from the team. So some people remained on for the entire hour, but they were able to come back and forth. We actually had people coming into multiple sessions throughout the week just to see what other people were asking, or maybe they went back to their application and their tool set and they came up with another question. It was a really great way for us to create camaraderie and get to know the clients, not just at the executive leadership level, but throughout the entire organization.
Yep, I love that. I think your open mic nights are focused on specific entities, but we've also found a lot of success having less cleverly named versions of open mic night where we have, you know, partners join a session and share both concerns and ideas. And I think there's a lot of freedom in going, oh, it's not just me. I didn't realize you were also experiencing these things. How did you solve for it? So yeah, those open collaboration sessions are great. James, your thought on this? Your thoughts on this?
No, Stacy nailed it. I mean, I think from a partner perspective, it's use the tools that you're selling. Have familiarity, have understanding. You know, be the evangelist of those particular products. And you know, we've had a lot of districts that have used the UC tools in terms of recording the training sessions. So I think it's really that. It's understanding, familiarity, and use the tools that you're providing to those customers.
Well, that's great. I'll close us out here with another open question here, not on your script, but should be in your wheelhouse. Any parting comments, I guess, here for our partners? So we've talked about a bunch of stuff. Distance learning is here to stay. Technology is being acquired and adopted with its own challenges around adoption. Again, creating continuity with our other panels. We've talked about funding and how funding can come into play and how some of these organizations can get funding. But any other last comments here to help our partners talk to their public sector or private sector customers in the education space on how they should address distance learning?
Sure.
Stacey, please.
Sure, thanks, James. Not only do they have us as partners and resources, but I would also advise that our business partners go out to the district's business plans and they read through them. Often they're 50 pages or less, but you'll glean a lot of information about the initiatives of that district for the next fiscal calendar year. For example, their donor programs and being able to solicit donations and track those. That has a real big play in UC communications and being able to make outbound calls and bringing that data metrics into a single reporting system. Likewise, with being able to integrate into the student information system or even their IT ticketing help desk. So there's a lot of avenues if we have a broader depth and breadth of understanding of what the district is looking to accomplish within that school year, that I think will help differentiate our business partners from what they're hearing from typical speak in the market.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I would add to that, you know, go and review past board meetings. What are they doing? What is their back to school plan? There's other additional resources out there in terms of funding. National Council of State Legislatures has a great website that shares what the states are receiving for ESSER funds. And I think lastly, they need your help. There's so much out there that they need your help, and they need a partner that is experienced, that is very technical, and can provide great solutions to their district. So they need your help, and I think you all can provide it.
Yeah, that's perfect closure. Thank you for both of you. You hit on the points that I was going to close out with too. we're all collectively here to help you out. Lots of resources available to you. So please, partners, leverage your resources at ScanSource, at Mitel, at Jabra, at your supplier partners. There's opportunity here, which we all want you to capitalize on opportunity, obviously, but you're not on your own in helping these customers solve these problems. And a lot of times these aren't even known solutions yet. So I love both the review the business plan and review the board meeting comments. Haven't heard those before. Those were unique and some really good call outs. So I'll close this out today. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, James, for joining us on the panel today. Again, partners, these panels are put together for you. You're the audience. We want to help you discover opportunities. For more information on our resources available to you in the education space, check out www.scansource.com/education program. And with that, I will say thank you. And thank you again, Stacy, and thank you, James.
Thanks all.
Thank you.